And what a debate it has kicked off. See Rajagopalachari instead of Edwin Lutyens. Sevatit instead of North Block and South Block. Keralam instead of Kerala. India is sharing its colonial past step by step for, as the Prime Minister called it, the Macaulay mindset could soon be a thing of the past. On Monday, President Droupadi Murmu unveiled the bust of the first and only Governor General of our country when it was independent, C. Rajagopalachari, at Rashtrapati Bhavan to replace the bust of Edwin Lutyens, the man who was the architect of New Delhi as we know it today. And that was enough to set off a wave of outrage. Some said that this was nothing more than an attempt to erase history, to try and rewrite it. Others mocked the BJP's obsession with changing and replacing things, while some even called for an apology to be rendered to the family of Edwin Lutyens. But is this really an outrage or an idea whose time has come? An erasure of history or reclaiming what really is India's actual history? Let's go across, in fact, to the guests who are joining us now. Professor Makhan Lal, historian, faces off against Dr. Ruchika Sharma, also a historian. Professor Makhan Lal, I want to start by asking you why? What does it achieve? And that's the question we are constantly asked. Can Edwin Lutyens and Rajaji not coexist?
Can you repeat your question? Can Lutyens Delhi not accommodate Rajaji?
No.
What was your question?
Can Rashtrapati Bhavan not accommodate Edwin Lutyens and Rajaji's bust? Can they not both coexist? What was the need to remove one in order to put the other?
Perfectly great question you have asked, and I admire your sense of history and also the question. Yark Road was known, Yark Road, now it is Motilal Nehru Road. Can both of them not accommodated? What about Rajendra Prasad Road was known as King Edward Road? Could they have not both accommodated? Maulana Azad Road was known as Queen's Road, Queen Victoria Road. Could they not have been accommodated both? Viceroy Lodge is today known as President House. Could President House not accommodated both the names, larger? And more than that, remember, Rajpath is a second name. First name was Kingsway. Janpath is second name. First name was Queensway. Could they not have been accommodated? Kingsway oblique Rajpath? These are all very questions asked by those people who try to see the history in one way, in a jaundiced way, and in a very unrealistic way. They forget the history. Today when you ask that could they both have not existed together, my question is very simple. Queen Victoria oblique Rajendra Prasad Road could not have existed together, Yark Road, and there are hundreds of examples. And therefore, similarly, Parliament House was known as Imperial Legislative Assembly. Why do you made it Parliament House? You could have continued with Imperial or Imperial Legislative Assembly and Parliament House. Remember, you cannot carry your freedom as well as legacy of colonialism. You cannot carry your freedom along with the slavery. You have to disown something which was the past and bad. But disowning does not mean you have to forget it. You don't have to carry it on your back all the time. You have to keep in your mind. And therefore, I am of very firm opinion that the most appropriate thing has been there. Rajaji was not ordinary Indian. Remember, he was the first Indian occupant of that building. Before him, no Indian occupied a single room there. And therefore, it is most fitting thing that Rajaji's bust has been placed. As a historian, I must say, on my ignorance, I am shocked that a architect and planner's bust is there in the main building of Delhi. Where do you find anywhere else? Do you think there is anything at Red Square? Do you think there is anything in the, in Parliament House of Britain, planner's bust, or in anywhere else? How long can you carry on the burden of, slavery?
Okay, let's take that question across to Dr. Ruchika Sharma.
My view.
All right, so one point at a time. One, these two busts could not coexist simply because freedom and colonial occupation cannot coexist. Dr. Ruchika Sharma.
I actually disagree with what Professor Makhan Lal is saying. But I agree with him as to why there should be a bust for Edwin Lutyens. I think there should be no bust at all. What New Delhi represents today is the sovereignty of India, and there is no great man culture that the sovereign India actually endorses. So neither Rajaji nor Edwin Lutyens' bust should idly be there. However, be that as it may, I don't see, if we must have a bust, I don't see why Edwin Lutyens' bust should be a problem. He's not the Raj, he's the architect. He's the person who has actually built New Delhi by keeping into account the different Indian architectural traditions. So there is the Buddhist traditions, there is of course the Mughal architecture, as well as the Chhatris, etc., which is the Indic tradition, so taken from Mandu, taken from Gujarat. He made sure that he could incorporate all different kinds of Indian architectural traditions, all different kinds of different capitals of Delhi. So in one line you have the Indraprastha, which is considered the ancient capital of Delhi, then you had the Mughal Shah Jahanabad, and then you had the New Delhi, which is the modern city. So I don't see why there is a problem with Edwin Lutyens. My third point, of course, is also the fact that if we are replacing it with somebody, we must be very aware of the fact that if we think of Edwin Lutyens as problematic and representing of a colonial regime, then Rajaji's ideology was also in many ways very problematic. He was somebody, for example, who was anti-land reforms and supported the zamindari system. He believed that Hindu women, their ideal life is a domestic life, and therefore they should not inherit their father's property. He was somebody who believed in patrilineal inheritance. So when we are commemorating somebody with their bust, is that something that we are commemorating? I think that is a very important question that India needs to ask, which is why I think great men statues should actually not be there at all, because all great men have had very problematic opinions. And therefore we must not be commemorating either of these.
Professor
Padmaja, I don't want, this is not my nature in long career of 50 years as a historian. I don't get in argument with anyone. But let me tell you one thing. Whatever may be the policy and personal opinion of Rajaji may have, but let us remember one thing. Who made him the first governor, Indian Governor General of India? Congress Party, Nehru, Gandhi. If they were not knowing all these qualities which my friend is saying, I am sorry, I don't know. Secondly, remember Rajaji was one of the most respected leaders of the Congress, and when he gave his idea about Pakistan in 1942, after Lahore Resolution, Jinnah had said, "Moth eaten Pakistan, I will not accept." But in 1947, Jinnah got exactly what Rajaji had proposed, and all Congress leaders in 1942 were against. But Jinnah and Congress leader agreed exactly what Rajaji said. Rajaji was, after Patel's death, Rajaji was also the Home Minister. He was the Chief Minister of this. Let us not belittle him about his opinion of lady in the house and lady on the street. We must learn to respect people to whichever shade they are. If they have been irreplaceable, they have been very important for nation's life. And therefore,
is Rajaji being diminished in order to bring some kind of false equivalence with Edwin Lutyens, who, let's face it, Dr. Ruchika Sharma, is nowhere even in the standing of C. Rajagopalachari. The man was outright racist. You spoke of, the architecture of India. He actually held Indian architecture in very, very low esteem. He said about Chhatris that Chhatris are stupid and useless things. And that's just the beginning. A few of the gems, some of the other gems about Edwin Lutyens, since we are talking about it for the benefit of our viewers. Here's what he has said repeatedly, and he corresponded with his wife at that time. He spoke about Indian habits, about Indian people, Indian natives. I do not like Indians. I do not like being in India. This he wrote in his letter to his wife. Then subsequently, when he was traveling across the country, he said the natives are very difficult to deal with. In one of the correspondence, he even called Indians little niggers. They are very primitive people. I don't believe they are fit for self-government. Again, in a letter to his wife in 1918, when it comes to Indian architecture, what did he say? That the Indian does not understand our civilization and cannot be made to. So sure, you can have a problem with the worldview of Rajaji, but Edwin Lutyens is nowhere in comparison. Why is his legacy being diminished simply because this debate has started? Dr. Sharma.
I'm going to go back to my first point. I actually don't think there should be any bust at all. So neither should Edwin Lutyens' bust be there, neither should Rajaji's bust be there. Primarily because, Professor Lal said it's a very small thing, Hindu woman on the streets, I don't think it's a small thing at all. As a Hindu woman, I take great offense to the fact that any man could have such an opinion that a woman belongs to a domestic life. Absolutely not. How dare you? I also do not think that, and I also do not take kindly to his views about the fact that Hindu women do not deserve inheritance of their parents. But since Jinnah has been brought here, and since Rajaji and Jinnah being one on the Pakistan plan, well, there are so many others that Professor Makhanlal very conveniently missed out. So was V.D. Savarkar, who was absolutely in favor of a two-nation theory and had ratified it even before the Lahore Resolution in 1937. In his speech, he very clearly mentions that he's absolutely okay with the two-nation theory, and he thinks that Hindu and Muslims cannot coexist. So I don't see, I don't understand why only Rajaji is being singled out on that.
Okay, but just to reiterate again, why do you think that Rajaji's bus should not be there? Because few of his thoughts or few of his opinions were problematic. So he doesn't deserve a place there as well.
No, I think nobody's bust should be there. This is the third time I'm repeating.
But he's an Indian hero. He was a freedom fighter. Why shouldn't he be commemorated in Rashtrapati Bhavan? He was the first resident of that building.
Because I have a right to my opinion, and I don't think great man bust or great man culture is actually something that any nation should allow for. The nation is not made up of great men.
Okay.
The nation is made up of a constitution and its people and its sovereignty.
Okay, Professor Makhanlal, please, because I'll run out of time.
To exist.
Professor Makhanlal.
Let me make a historical correction. Two-nation theory was not propounded by Savarkar or RSS. In 1988, famous Marathi speech, 1888, not 1888, Sir Syed has said Hindus and Muslims are two nations, they cannot exist together. That speech is published, Google and you will find it. In 1905, when Muslim League was established, this was absolutely insisted upon why Muslim League is important. And number three, 1930 and 1931, Allama Iqbal was the president of Muslim League. 1930 speech was given at Allahabad. And you take Jinnah's Lahore speech, exactly he verbatim, not even comma and full stop change. He repeats Allama Iqbal's, and Allama Iqbal not only talked about ideology and Quran, but he talked about the Muslim nation geography. Sir Syed had not talked about geography. Allama Iqbal, 1930 Allahabad speech, 17 long pages typed speech.
Okay.
He delineated the geography that this is the area of India which needs to be declared Pakistan, and that is what exactly they got.
Okay, unfortunately,
number three.
Okay, unfortunately, right now I'm completely and horribly out of time. I promise a longer debate only on this, on two-nation theory. But right now, on the issue of whether great men need to be remembered, commemorated by the country that they led through the freedom struggle, I leave to your judgment. And think about it. If you're going to be doing away with all statues, all busts, will we also then remove Gandhiji from our currency notes? I'll leave you with that thought. For the time being, Professor Makhanlal, Dr. Ruchika Sharma, thanks very much for having joined me here on the Buck Stops Here.